The coffee is still warm. That's the detail you'll remember later, not the terminal. Not the announcements echoing in a language you half understand. Not the departure board blinking your gate number in pale green light. The coffee, still warm, in your hand. You have 40 minutes before boarding. Your bag is packed exactly the way you always pack it. Organized, efficient, the kind of packing that feels like control. Passport in the front zip pocket, boarding pass folded in half. You've done this before. You know how this works. You put in your earbuds, hit play. Let the airport become background noise. That's when the hand lands on your shoulder. Not aggressive, not violent, just present. Firm and certain, in a way that tells you this person has done this before too. You turn around expecting someone who recognizes you, a face from somewhere, a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. Two men in uniform, neither of them smiling. One is holding something, a document, a folder, a piece of paper with your name on it. You can't quite read it because your brain hasn't caught up yet. Your earbuds are still playing. Some song you'll never be able to listen to again. One of them says something. You don't understand the words, but you understand the tone. You understand the way they position themselves. One in front, one slightly to the side. You understand that the coffee in your hand has become irrelevant. You try to smile. The instinct of someone who has never needed to think about what comes next in a situation like this. They don't smile back. And somewhere in the distance, a boarding announcement calls a flight you will not be on. They don't handcuff you immediately. That's the first thing that confuses you. You expected handcuffs. You've seen enough movies to have a mental script for this. Shouting, wrists behind your back, the click of metal. Instead, they walk you through the terminal like colleagues, one on each side, unhurried, past the duty-free shop with its walls of whiskey bottles, past a family taking photos in front of a departure sign, past a woman reading a novel who doesn't look up. Nobody looks at you. That's when you understand something important. This looks completely normal. You look like someone being escorted. Not arrested, escorted. They take you to a room that doesn't appear on any airport map. A door that looks like it leads to maintenance. Fluorescent lights. A metal table. 3 plastic chairs. The kind of room designed to make you forget that an entire airport exists 20 feet away. A third man is already inside. Civilian clothes. Reading something on his phone. He doesn't look up when you enter. He finishes whatever he's reading, sets the phone face down on the table, and only then acknowledges that you exist. He has a sandwich. He's eating a sandwich while your life is coming apart at the seams. The paperwork begins. Forms you cannot read, a process you cannot follow. He explains something in fragmented English. Document, regulation, temporary. Words that should be reassuring but aren't, arranged in an order that tells you nothing. Your passport slides across the table. His hand covers it. It stays there. You ask for your phone. He writes something down. You ask what you're being charged with. He writes something else down. You ask to call your embassy. He looks at you the way a doctor looks at a patient who has just diagnosed themselves incorrectly. Patient, unmoved, already certain of what comes next. Then the phone. Your phone. Your connection to everyone who knows your name, everyone who would notice if you went quiet, slides into a plastic bag. A sticker is placed on the bag. A number is written on the sticker. You are now a number. The man picks up his sandwich again, and you realize this is the most terrifying thing that has happened so far. Not the arrest, not the room, not the passport disappearing under a stranger's hand. It's this. the absolute, practiced indifference of a man who has done this so many times that he can eat while doing it. You are not an emergency. You are Tuesday. The cell is 6 steps wide. You know this because you count them. Immediately, automatically, the way your brain reaches for something measurable when everything else has stopped making sense. 6 steps from the door to the wall. 4 steps from the window. There is no window. 4 steps from where a window should be to the opposite corner. You pace it like a proof. Like if you measure it enough times, the numbers will change. They don't change. You sit on the concrete slab that serves as a bed, and you do what every person in your position does in the first hour. You make a plan. It's a good plan. Logical, sequenced. You'll contact the embassy first thing in the morning. You'll explain the misunderstanding. You'll provide documentation. You know people, not powerful people, but real people. People with phones and internet connections and the ability to make noise on your behalf. The plan feels solid, actionable, almost comforting. By hour 3, you're revising it. By hour 5, you're dismantling it. By the time the light under the door shifts from yellow to gray, your only clock, you've run every version of the plan and arrived at the same place each time. Tonight, no one is coming. Not because they don't care, not because the system has failed, simply because it is night and you are in a building that does not appear on any map your contacts know to search, and the machinery that might eventually help you operates on its own schedule, and that schedule does not include the next several hours. You lie back on the concrete, stare at the ceiling, and then you hear it. From the cell next to yours, through the wall, through the concrete and the metal and the institutional silence, snoring. Deep, rhythmic, completely unbothered snoring. Someone sleeping the sleep of a person who has been here long enough that this ceiling is just a ceiling. This slab is just a bed. This night is just a night. That sound is the loneliest thing you have ever heard, because it tells you something the guards didn't, something the paperwork didn't, something no one has said directly, but is now completely clear. People adjust to this place, and you don't yet know if that's hope or a warning. Day 3. They come for you before breakfast. No explanation. 2 guards, a direction, a corridor that smells like disinfectant, and something underneath the disinfectant you don't want to identify. You pass doors. Behind some of them, silence. Behind others, sounds you categorize quickly and then stop thinking about. The interrogation room is smaller than the one at the airport. Same fluorescent lights, same metal table. But this one has a mirror on the wall, the kind that isn't really a mirror, and a camera in the corner with a small red light that may or may not be recording. The man across from you is different from the one at the airport. Younger, tidier. His English is careful and deliberate, the English of someone who learned it specifically for rooms like this one. He doesn't start with questions. He starts with information. Calm, organized, almost generous. He tells you what you've been charged with. He explains the relevant statute. He outlines, with something approaching sympathy, the range of possible outcomes. He does all of this the way a financial advisor explains a portfolio. Thorough, professional, faintly sorrowful about the numbers. 5 years minimum, 15 years maximum. He lets that settle. Then he slides a document across the table. It's several pages, dense text in a language you don't speak. His finger points to a line near the bottom, a blank line, the universal geometry of signature required here. This will help your case, he says. The judge responds well to cooperation. You look at the document. You look at him. You look at the red light on the camera. What does it say? It says, you understand the charges against you. Something in the phrasing is wrong. Not the words individually. Each one is simple enough. It's the architecture of the sentence. Understand is doing too much work. Understanding charges is not the same as accepting them. Not the same as admitting them. I want to read it before I sign. Of course, he doesn't move the document. Take your time. You stare at pages you cannot read for 60 seconds that feel like 20 minutes. His expression doesn't change. He has done this before. He will do this again. He has infinite patience for this particular silence because he knows something you don't yet know. You push the document back across the table. I'm not signing something I can't read. He looks at you for a long moment. Then he nods. One slow nod, the nod of someone updating an internal file, and it calls for the guards. No anger, no threat, no indication that anything significant just happened. You're walked back to your cell. It's only weeks later, through your lawyer, that you learn what those pages actually said. Not, "I understand the charges." A full confession. Guilty plea. Sentencing deferred to the court's discretion. You didn't know that when you refused. You got lucky. And luck, you're beginning to understand, is the only currency in this place that cannot be purchased. Day 5. A different kind of visitor. You've been rehearsing this moment since the airport, the words you'll say, the documents you'll reference, the calm, measured tone you'll use to explain that this is a mistake, that the system has malfunctioned, that someone with the right credentials and the right phone numbers needs to make 2 or 3 calls and get you out of here by Friday. You've run this conversation in your head so many times it feels like a memory. The man who walks in is wearing a good suit, laminated badge. The kind of posture that comes from years of representing something larger than himself. He sits across from you, opens a folder, and looks at you with an expression you will come to recognize as the official face of limited options. He speaks first. We're aware of your situation. We've been in contact with the relevant authorities. You lean forward. This is the part where it starts getting resolved. The process here is different from what you're used to. You're subject to the laws of this country. That's not something we can override. You wait for the next sentence. The sentence that starts, however. It doesn't come. What comes instead is a careful, thorough, professionally compassionate explanation of exactly what the embassy can and cannot do. They can ensure you have legal representation. They can verify that your conditions meet minimum standards. They can contact your family. They can flag your case for monitoring. They cannot make a phone call that ends this. The passport in your front pocket, the one they took from you 4 days ago, you'd been treating it like a skeleton key. The physical proof of a government that would show up for you, that had agreements and leverage and weight to throw around. And it does have weight. Just not enough. Not here, not yet. He closes his folder. Your family has been notified. He stands, extends his hand. You shake it because you don't know what else to do with yours. He leaves, and the guard appears in the doorway before the sound of the embassy man's footsteps has fully faded down the corridor. You think about something he said, not yet, and hold on to it like a passport of a different kind. The first skill you learn is how to sleep through noise. Not to block it out, not to ignore it. That's a different thing entirely. That's resistance. And resistance costs energy you don't have. What you learn slowly, over the first 3 weeks, is how to incorporate the noise into the texture of sleep the way a city dweller incorporates traffic. It becomes the baseline. The silence, if it ever came, would be what woke you. This is your first adaptation. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like loss. Week 3. You learn the economy, not money. Money is too visible, too dangerous to carry openly. The real currency is smaller, a portion of food, A cigarette, even if you don't smoke. A piece of information about when the guards rotate, which corridor is unwatched between 2:15 and 2:45, which administrator responds to which particular form of patients. Knowledge is the currency. Relationships are the exchange rate. Your cellmate, the one who has been here long enough to have opinions about the food from 3 regimes ago, teaches you without ever calling it teaching. He demonstrates, you observe, you replicate. Slowly, you stop being the person everyone watches and start being the person no one needs to watch. That is its own kind of freedom. Month 2. Something shifts in the language. You've been picking up words the way you'd pick up rocks on a path, automatically without deciding to. A word for meal, a word for guard, a word for wait, which turns out to be the most important word in any language spoken in a place like this. One morning you understand a joke someone makes in the yard. You don't laugh. Laughing too quickly at a joke you weren't supposed to understand has its own risks. But you understand it. You understand it. You file this away and say nothing. Month 4. You start dreaming in the wrong language, not fluently. Fragments, voices that aren't speaking English around the edges of whatever your sleeping brain constructs. You wake up, and the transition back to yourself takes a half-second longer than it used to. You notice this. You don't mention it to anyone. Month 6 arrives not like a milestone, but like a Tuesday. You're in the yard. The light is doing something specific to the dust in the air. That particular late afternoon quality that turns everything amber, and you're watching 2 men play a card game with a deck that's missing 7 cards and has been for as long as anyone can remember, and you realize you are not thinking about home, not suppressing thoughts of home, not fighting them off, simply not having them, not in this moment. And the thought that follows is the one that stops you completely. When did this place become the place I'm from? You don't say it out loud. You go back to your cell. You do your push-ups. You eat what arrives through the slot in the door. You mark the wall. But the question stays. It will stay for the rest of the time you're here and for a long time after. Because somewhere between surviving this place and enduring it, you stopped being a visitor. Month 8. Your lawyer tells you the trial date has been set. She says this the way someone tells you a package has been shipped. Factual, procedural, mildly encouraging. She has 72 cases. You stopped being a person to her around case 40. You are a file with a face, which is still better than being a file without one. You ask her what to expect. She thinks about this longer than you'd like. Expect it to be in a language you don't speak, she says. Expect it to be about you without being for you. Expect the outcome to have been partially shaped before you walk in. You ask her what that means. It means your job is to look honest. That's all. Just look honest. The courtroom is smaller than you imagined. Wooden benches worn smooth by decades of people sitting in them with varying degrees of hope. A ceiling fan that moves the air without cooling it. A flag you don't recognize the significance of. A judge behind a desk elevated just enough to require you to look up at him. A detail that is almost certainly not accidental. Your lawyer sits beside you. The translator sits beside her. You are one person removed from every word spoken in this room. The prosecution presents for 40 minutes. Your lawyer translates in fragments afterward. They said this, essentially, and the word essentially is doing considerable work. The photographs of your bag are displayed, the substance in its evidence bag, a timeline constructed by people who weren't there, about events they've reconstructed from paperwork. It is strange to watch your own life being narrated by strangers. The judge asks one question. Only one. Your lawyer translates it, leans close, speaks quietly. Did you know the substance was in your bag? You answer honestly. Yes, you knew it was there. No, you didn't know it was illegal here. In your country, it is legal, regulated, taxed, sold in stores with receipts. The judge writes something. The pen moves for longer than the answer warranted. Then it's over. The trial portion, anyway. The verdict will come separately. Days, weeks, the timeline deliberately vague. You're walked back to the facility. Back to the cell. Back to the routine that has calcified around you like something geological. 14 days later, your lawyer visits. She sits down. She places her folder on the table. She does not open it immediately. That pause, 3 seconds, maybe 4, is the longest pause of your life. Guilty, she says. The word arrives cleanly. No static around it. Reduced sentence. 3 years. You do the math automatically, the way your brain has learned to do math in this place. 3 years, 36 months. 1,095 days from a starting point you're already 8 months into. The number doesn't make you cry. You're past the place where numbers make you cry. You just sit with it the way you've learned to sit with everything here. Still, quiet. Letting it become part of the weight you carry rather than something that knocks you down. 3 years. You go back to the cell. You mark the wall. Time in here doesn't move the way time moves outside. Outside, time is continuous, a river. In here, it's something else. A series of still photographs, each one slightly different from the last. The motion only visible when you hold them far enough apart to see the change. Here are 5 photographs. Month 9. You are teaching English to your cellmate using the wall as a blackboard. Your finger traces letters in the grime. He repeats the sounds with the concentration of someone diffusing something. You correct his vowels. He corrects your pronunciation of a word in his language you've been saying wrong for 6 months. You are both laughing before you realize you're laughing. Later you think about this moment and cannot fully explain what it meant. Only that it happened. Only that it was real. Month 14, you realize you've stopped counting days towards something and started counting them out of habit. The scratch on the wall each morning is no longer a countdown. It's closer to a heartbeat. Automatic, rhythmic. Proof that another 24 hours passed and you were present for them. You're not sure when that shift happened. You're not sure what it means that you can't locate it. Month 18. A letter arrives from your mother. 4 pages reduced to 1.5 by the censor's black marker. What remains is fragmented. Partial sentences, half thoughts, love with the specifics removed. You read what's left so many times you memorize it. Then you read the black bars, trying to reconstruct what's underneath. You never figure it out. You keep the letter anyway. Under the foam pad, against the concrete. Month 22. A man in your block is released. You watch him walk toward the gate from the yard. The particular walk of someone who has remembered how to want something. At the gate, he stops, turns back once, looks at the yard, at the building, at all of you still standing inside it. His expression is not triumphant. It is not even relieved. It is the expression of someone who understands for the first time what they survived. You memorize his face. You don't know why. You just do. Month 26, Tuesday morning. The light comes through the gap above the door the same way it always does. The sounds from the corridor follow their usual sequence. You go through your routine. The push-ups, the water, the waiting for the food slot to open. Then a guard stops at your door. He says your name, not your number. Your name. Something in the air changes. You don't move yet. You've learned not to move toward things too quickly in here. But something in your chest, something that has been very quiet for a very long time, It shifts. The process of leaving takes longer than you expect. More paperwork, more signatures on documents you still cannot read. A holding room, a different holding room. An official who needs a form that another official has. 2 hours of bureaucracy applied to the single, most significant moment of the past 26 months, as if the system wants one final reminder that it operates on its own schedule, not yours. You don't rush it. You've learned not to rush things. When they return your belongings, sealed in the same plastic bag from the airport, your name on the sticker in handwriting you don't recognize, you hold the bag without opening it. Inside is the person you were before this started, the boarding pass, the earbuds, the phone with a battery that died sometime in the first week and hasn't been charged since. You sign the final form, the guard opens a door, and you walk through it. The first thing you notice is the smell, not freedom. Freedom doesn't have a smell. What you notice is asphalt. Hot asphalt in afternoon sun, that particular petroleum and heat combination that exists in parking lots and service roads and the unglamorous edges of places. You have not smelled asphalt in 26 months. You didn't know you'd missed it. You didn't know it was something a person could miss. You stand there for 3 seconds longer than necessary just breathing it. The van to the airport is quiet. An embassy official raids with you, makes careful small talk about the flight time and the connection and the weather back home. You answer in single words. You watch through the window. Trees, traffic, people on motorcycles, a woman hanging laundry on a balcony, a child being carried on someone's shoulders, the entire ordinary world going about its ordinary business completely indifferent to the fact that you are moving through it again after so long. On the plane, the federal marshal beside you offers a magazine. You decline. You press your face against the window instead. Below, the country recedes. The roads, the rooftops, the geometry of a place that held you for longer than you held it. You think about the man from month 22, his expression at the gate, the thing you memorized in his face and are only now beginning to understand. It wasn't relief. It was the specific weight of walking away from people who cannot walk away yet. Your mother is smaller than you remember, not fragile, just compressed somehow. The way people get when they've been carrying something heavy for a long time, and the carrying has become structural. She hugs you in the arrivals area, and you feel the specific grip of someone who practiced this moment in her head for 26 months, and is now discovering that the real version is different from every version she rehearsed. You hold on longer than you normally would. You don't feel what you expected to feel. You thought freedom would arrive like a wave, sudden, overwhelming, the emotional equivalent of breaking the surface after too long underwater. Instead, it arrives like a change in weather. Gradual, atmospheric. The difference between inside and outside that you only fully register after you've been standing in it for a while. The world is very loud, not dangerously loud, just more than you'd been accounting for. More inputs, more decisions, more options for everything. The grocery store, 3 days after your release, nearly undoes you. Not because of anything dramatic, but because you are standing in front of 43 varieties of cereal and your brain, which spent 26 months making almost no choices, simply refuses to engage with the question. You leave without buying anything. You're working on it. Here is what nobody tells you about an experience like this. The person who went in and the person who came out are related but not identical. Something got left behind, not broken off, not destroyed, just permanently reassigned to a version of you that only exists in that place now. And something came back that wasn't there before, a particular quality of attention. An ability to be present in a room without needing the room to be anything other than what it is. You don't know yet whether that's damage or education. Maybe it's both. Maybe the line between them was always thinner than you understood. What you know is this: somewhere in a facility you will never return to, the men who taught you how to survive are still teaching someone else, still marking walls, still reading the same 3 books until the spines disintegrate, still navigating an economy built from scraps and patience, and the particular dignity of people who have nothing left to perform for. They don't have a passport that negotiates on their behalf, they just have time. And you are standing here in a grocery store, in a country that never stopped recognizing your name, trying to choose between cereals, and understanding finally what an extraordinary thing that is.